All right, everyone. We saw the Buckeyes on the field tonight against Michigan State. We saw Florida earlier, Clemson with the day off, Alabama with the day off, LSU with another demolition, this time of Utah State, Georgia running away from Tennessee in the second half. So, what do we think? Who is the best team in college football through 6 weeks? Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. And we just took in another full day, including a Thursday and Friday night. And we just have a few scattered games left, nothing of significance necessarily, unless Stanford is able to give some resistance to Washington, as it is a big game for the Huskies in their quest to win another Pac-12 championship, and possibly, if they get some help with one loss, factor into the college football playoffs. All right, Ohio State with a win over Michigan State, 34-10, as the Buckeyes got off to a slow start offensively, dominated defensively basically the entire game, and marched on to the victory from there. We also saw on this day Michigan with a big win over Iowa, not necessarily impressive from an offensive standpoint, but the Michigan defense was back in form under Don Brown, winning that game 10-3. Virginia Tech going up on Miami 35-0, giving them 35 straight points, and then closing out with the drive in the final minute to go up 42-35 and then hold on for dear life with an incompleted pass in the end zone to hang on 42-35. Of course, we had the Florida-Auburn game, which from a matchup standpoint, two of the top 10 teams in the country, was the matchup of the day. And tons of mistakes in the game that made it quite entertaining. Strip sacks that were taking the almost the distance by Auburn, muffed punts, fake punts that went awry, interceptions, poorly thrown footballs on both sides, especially by Bo Nix on the Auburn side, and the Tigers fall in the swamp to Florida 24-13, which sets up the Florida at LSU game next week as the game of the week. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Of course, we've got the super chat on if you want to contribute to the channel and what we do here on a daily basis in delivering top-notch college football analysis, then that's available to you. Also, like, comment, and share the videos and subscribe. Of course, we will get to the comments here in the live chat. We will run down the day in college football, as we always do every Saturday night. And, of course, I will take your calls at 860-325-3687. It's almost Christmas, folks. So I know that a ton of you will be online going to Amazon. If you shop at Amazon, please use the link in any of the description sections of any of the videos. Use the link, the Amazon link, and you do your regular shopping at Amazon, and you help out the channel. All right, let's fire it up. Who do we got on the line? Whoa. Lou's number one on board. First guy in the chat. Good to see from Lou. Whoo-wee! Tennessee jumped out 7-0. They were up 14-10. The Vols had a little life in them, but Georgia way too much. I saw some of that game. I DVR'd it. Maybe I'll watch it a little bit later. Maybe catch a few plays here and there. 43-14 final. DJ, best part of this Ohio State win is they can play so much better. I think they played pretty well tonight. Dennis, what is up? What's up with the Canes? Yeah, lose first. We also have another Dogs fan in Brian jumping on board. Go Dogs. Florida Avatar. Go Dogs. Okay. I'll go with it. Travis on the line. Uncle Lou's been talking up the Buckeyes as the best team in college football. I think he might be right. Brian, not Auburn for sure. Too bad they didn't move up to number 2 or 3. Lou knew better. I don't know what you're alluding to. If you're alluding to my rankings, Brian, you clearly don't understand how I rank teams. If you are, maybe you're not. Travis, everyone said we would lose. We being the Gators, I guess. Vodka drinker, what's poppin'? All right, let's talk some college football. Anybody else in the line with anything of note? I think basically Auburn lost the game for a number of reasons, but first and foremost, Bo Nix is not ready for that kind of stage in regards to he's not overwhelmed. He's a baller. He's a gamer. He's tough. He's spirited. He's a leader. I think he's got all the physical and the mental makeup to be a top-notch quarterback, but he's just not consistent enough right now. He's not mechanically sound enough, makes too many bad throws, too many errant throws, and most of those fall incomplete, but some of them go into the hands of the wrong guys, and that happened a number of times in this game, specifically in the red zone a couple times that really, really cost them. Colin Thibodeau, $2 from Colin. Still down on Florida. So, Colin, if that's directed toward me, I have ranked Florida higher than anybody that I know, number 7 this past week. So I wasn't necessarily down on Florida. I did not predict them to beat Auburn. I took Auburn. I did have a call from Uncle Lou last night, and we both, as soon as he made the comment, I kind of fell into it as well, thinking, hey, maybe there's something going on here. Everybody loves Auburn in this game. They played so much better than Florida. The Gators have played like garbage, but they've survived these games against Miami and Kentucky. And Auburn's looked just resume. They look like the best team in the country. Not the best team in the country, but played the toughest schedule and beat the toughest schedule to date. And so, yeah, I think it made sense that Vegas made them a 2.5 to 3 point favorite on the road, which means Vegas really believed them to be 7 or 8 points better. But Florida showed up and won. You know, it's serious when Mark puts on the glasses. Yeah. Getting serious these days. It happens more and more. Elijah, Ohio State could have made that score worse, killed ourselves. Let's not fret it. 34-10, still pretty impressive over Sparty. All right, Vodka Drinker, Gators and Bayou Bengals are a good matchup this coming week. Yep, early spread. Let's take a guess on this one. LSU at home against Florida. I'm going to say LSU's a 5 to 6 point favorite. That's going to be my guess on this one. Miami fans, I don't know what you got this week. I don't know what you got after a game against a team that was 7 points better than Furman and only 2 touchdowns better than Old Dominion. Got trashed by Duke by 5 touchdowns. Lost to Boston College, who lost to Kansas by 24 points. I don't know what's going on with Miami. I certainly want an apology from everybody that took me to task after I picked Miami to go 8-4 and Virginia to win the division, because it certainly looks like it's headed in that direction. They beat Central Michigan by 5. They lost to Virginia Tech. They lost to North Carolina. Travis, right on cue. Greg G, fast forward where the refs got trucked. Cheryl, loving those Buckeyes. Good to see you, Cheryl. How you doing tonight? Dennis, that guy Richard LeCount of liability in Georgia's secondary. Is he really? Is he? I'd have to hear from Lou on that one. I always thought he was a good player. I saw him make a big hit and get the one that was initially ruled as targeting that got reviewed. And then he made the interception, which wasn't necessarily a great play. Just the ball was fluttered up for him and he picked it off. Deeparat got paid today. I look like I'm getting paid today as well. 3 out of 4 on the games that I put a buck or 2 on. So that's always a good thing. 3 out of 4, 75%. I will take it. Buckeyes have sold me with that win tonight over Sparty. Michigan State's a good team. They're a good team. Let's not go crazy here. Michigan State has its deficiencies. Michigan State lost at home to Arizona State. Michigan State's not a great team. I still think Michigan State's better than Arizona State. They missed 3 field goals in that game, and that's continued to be a problem. We saw Michigan State miss 2 more Matt Coughlin field goals tonight, who was at one point in his career, after missing only 8 kicks in 2 years, the first team All Big Ten kicker. And he's missed 6 field goals this year and killed them against Arizona State. So Michigan State, still a pretty bad offense and a really great defense. So a really, really good defense that's led up the last 2 weeks against Indiana. And then most teams are going to give up 34 to Ohio State, especially when the offense can't do anything. The impressive thing about the Buckeyes is just the total defense on all 3 levels. The linebacking play over the past few seasons has been the big deficiency for the Buckeyes, and that's been shored up. They are letting the athletes run and fly around and hit people this year. Greg Schiano's somewhere else off campus with Bill Belichick, I think, up in New England, not confusing kids' minds with a bunch of complicated, complex NFL defenses. And Ohio State's just running and hitting on defense. And we see Chase Young just playing like a madman out there. And even when he doesn't make the plays, he's typically causing the plays to be made. Give me some water. Causing some plays to be made. And it's going to get mighty interesting when the Buckeyes play some better competition. That starts in a couple weeks against Wisconsin. So this was definitely the best team Ohio State's played. We thought it was Nebraska last week, and it probably was Nebraska or Cincinnati. Look at Cincinnati, though, beating UCF last night. A good team, a top 25 to 30 team in the nation, and Cincinnati beats them. They lost to Ohio State by 42 zip. So the Buckeyes are pretty darn good. So I appreciate the contribution from whomever I bypassed, the contribution earlier. Brian North with the contribution as well. What do you think about Diaz's future? Well, let's put the brakes on any type of hot seat talk concerning Manny Diaz. It's bad at Miami, but they're awfully close to being undefeated as well. And you are what your record is, but their performance could be undefeated. Their performance could be what it is. They could have lost another game against Central Michigan, possibly. So Miami's pretty much what they are right now. They're 2-3. They're probably headed toward, a 7-5 season? So Manny Diaz is not on the hot seat, but he's still certainly looking more Willie Taggart-ish by the day. Taking a team that has superior talent to the teams that they're facing and losing these games. Virginia Tech has been a hot mess. We talked about Justin Fuente's performance in Blacksburg, 21-9 out of the gate with a Coastal Division championship, a trip to the ACC championship game in which they took Clemson to within a score, couple decent bowl appearances, to now 8-9 in his last 17 games and losing to Old Dominion, barely beating Old Dominion, barely beating Furman, getting blasted by Duke. Out of those 9 losses by Virginia Tech the last 2 years, I believe 7 of those have been more than 3 touchdown scores. Virginia Tech's been the Florida State of the Coastal Division over the past year and a half, and they go down to Miami on the road and beat Miami. So what does this say about the Canes? I don't overreact to one particular game, but Virginia Tech's been playing, like Florida State, been playing awful football for a year and a half now, and they went to Miami and won. Who else has Virginia Tech beaten in the last year and a half? Look at the game scores over the last year and a half, and who else has Virginia Tech beaten that's any good? And they went to Miami and won and put up 42 points. I didn't see any of the game. I saw the last play of the game. I did DVR the game, and I will watch and comment on Miami and Virginia Tech. And I don't like the way my camera's positioned. There we go. Let's do that. Did Duke and the ACC have a week off? Duke is a moneymaker. Duke was losing to Pitt at halftime or sometime in the third quarter. Late game on the ACC network tonight. Travis, we appreciate it. For anybody who is joining the live chat for the first time, or maybe I haven't seen your handle before, and that's a number of people that I see in the live chat, I would love to know who you root for. So what videos do you want to see? Because I wrestle with this all the time in regards to previewing teams, and I started to focus a little bit more on Michigan the last few weeks with good results. So maybe we'll do a little bit more Michigan football in particular. Anthony, good to see you. What time is it? Trick question. Michigan State defense was the number 7 defense in the nation, and I think that's probably about accurate statistically. I think they are in practicality about the 7th best defense in the country. Clemson's got a better defense, more athletic defense. Ohio State's a better defense. Wisconsin might be a better defense. They're right in the same league. Georgia probably has, just because of the athletic portion of it, a better defense than Michigan State, slightly. Washington's really good on defense. Utah's really good, but Michigan State's better than them. Michigan State's got a top 5 to 10 defense in the country. Yeah, they're that good, and Ohio State started to make big plays on them in the second and third quarters and really didn't even need to do anything in the fourth quarter, or who knows, maybe they would have scored 50 points in this game. Yeah, they're that good. So the two in the live chat who have contributed to date, I appreciate it. Hidden Tears, what do you have? Georgia's number 1, LSU's 2. Notre Dame's number 3, Oklahoma 4. Bama not playing like a top 4 team. Neither is Clemson. Get them out of the playoffs. So this is the playoff prediction. Okay. Georgia, LSU, Notre Dame, Oklahoma. So Notre Dame's already lost, but they lost to Georgia, and they lost by 1 score only on the road. So I get that. But obviously Notre Dame, I would hope, would lose any kind of tiebreakers to a conference champion because they're going to have one less data point. I hope. Ohio State could have put up 47. DF Sports. All right, Vodka Drinker. Buckeyes had 300 yards and 24 points in the second quarter. The Buckeyes are real. Yeah, so let's understand what's happened the last 2 years that Ohio State has missed the college football playoffs. They have played like a playoff team, especially in 2017 through most of that season. They just inexplicably showed up in one game against an inferior team and just didn't show up. And that's not an excuse. They get blown out by a marginal team, especially Purdue. Iowa was better. Iowa was pretty good, but not really good. Not a great team. Iowa was a top 25 to 30 team. Purdue was more like a top 45 or 50 team that beat Ohio State by 29 last year. So those are embarrassing, inexplicable type performances. But this Ohio State team that we're seeing right here is basically doing this aside from the quarterback, aside from 2 starting offensive linemen, aside from really losing 2 excellent NFL wide receivers, especially Terry McLaurin's making some plays in the NFL right now, and losing who was their best defensive player last year, Draymond Jones up front. This is much of the same personnel. It's probably a duplication of more of the same roster than most of the top teams in the country. And this is a defense that was ranked 71st in the country last year. They were thinking too much. They had the wrong scheme. They were out of position constantly last year. They fixed it to a certain extent late in the season and played much better against that team up north, Northwestern, and Washington. But they weren't playing like this. Matt P. Buckeyes haven't even had to play in the second half this season. Another statement for the Buckeyes. How about Penn State? Matthew Miller. Penn State is the second best team in the Big Ten. It appears. Mineral Tim 79. I called Cincy. Would be in the top 25. Give me cred. We'll give you cred, Tim. Michigan State did play good early on. All right. Do we have any good comments here? Anybody? Let me give you the call-in number. Do that if you love college football. 860-325-3687, 860-325-3687. Oh, here we go. Let's fire it up. And yes, I do hate doing this from the standpoint of the operation. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Yo, Mark, it's your boy, Deep Rot.
My boy.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I guess we're pretty good friends.
I usually, Deep Rot, I usually hold that phrase for my actual boy. So he just left a few minutes ago, and yeah, that's kind of my deal with him. I said, my boy, but yeah, that it probably ends there.
Your boy, by the way?
He's 22.
Okay, I'm 26, so I guess similar range.
I'm not old enough to have a 26-year-old, Deep Rot.
Just a 22.
Just a 22-year-old, not a 26-year-old. No.
Okay. Perfect. But man, what an exciting week of college football. It's been a long time since I've called you. I think it might have been a full week that I've gone by and we haven't had a conversation. So, it's great to kind of catch up with the legend himself. And yeah, man, I mean, it was an exciting day of college football, I must say. Really happy that Texas got the big win in West Virginia, especially after that bitter 1-point loss last year with Will Greer in that 2-point conversion. So beating them in Morgantown, scoring 42 points, that makes me very, very happy. And Texas beat the spread, which was 10.5, so we got the 11 points. So that's a big, big win for us. But a couple of interesting points, man. I do think the Pac-12 is still very much alive in the college football playoff race. Oregon, I'm actually seeing the Oregon game right now. They are actually looking good to potentially win the conference and potentially win out in the conference. Now, of course, they play Washington, and maybe Washington will beat them, but I think that could be a quarterfinal game, like if there was such a thing as a college football quarterfinal. So that's another kind of thing that I was kind of curious about. What are your thoughts on that conference? Do you think it's alive or kind of just dead?
I think it's alive. It's technically alive. I could come up with a number of scenarios in which it could legitimately be considered for a playoff spot.
Oregon, or like a 12-1 Washington.
Yes. Do I think it's going to happen? No. I do not think that the Pac-12 is going to make the playoff.
Okay, that's an interesting prediction.
It's not an interesting prediction. I think it's a rather mundane and boring prediction, but that's the way I see it.
Yes.
Why would I deviate from my preseason prediction, which leads me to what Yardvark's Lawn Care is asking that I've displayed on the screen. What do you predict from Ohio State from here on out? Well, there's no reason for me to predict anything different than what I've predicted from my preseason prediction, which is Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, and Ohio State in the playoff. Looks pretty good at this point.
Yeah, I would say so.
Let's see, 0 losses, 0-0-0. Okay, it's looking pretty good right now.
Right now, but it's what week is it? 6, right? So we got a long season ahead of us.
Oh, of course.
And I mean, just as well as I do, we all love the sport because of the upsets that happen, right? And upsets happen causes the entire Power 5 to shake up and causes so many teams to be left out. Your team, Ohio State, got left out last year because of one game. So, but I don't think that it could happen this year at Northwestern, but I don't think it's going to happen. Speaking of Ohio State, I actually voted them number one in my imaginary poll, but I think they look like the best team in the country based on the eye test. What are your thoughts on that?
So a few weeks ago, I was asked to give a top 25 of what I believe to be the best teams in the country, not my top 25 that actually makes sense based on the resume. At the time, I said that I believed Ohio State, and this was about 3 weeks ago, was the fourth best team in the country. I rated Clemson number one, and that was before the North Carolina performance. Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State in that order, LSU fifth. And I thought that those five teams had distinguished themselves as the five best teams in the country, and Oklahoma sixth. And I will generally stay with that ranking and evaluation at this point, that Ohio State's one of the four best teams in the country. And I think it's awfully close because I haven't seen those teams play enough games against quality competition to separate them. But those are the most talented teams in the country. And they're generally, aside from the Clemson game against North Carolina, they're playing like it.
Yep. I completely agree. And speaking of untested teams, Oklahoma has had one of the easiest schedules to this date. They have not played any respectable opponent. And I'm saying that with all honesty. They played UCLA, arguably one of the worst Pac-12 teams, and then Kansas recently, and then before that Texas Tech, which both are projected to be 9-10, and then obviously the FCS opponent that they played as well. But this weekend they play Texas, my Longhorns, in Dallas. So that's going to be a very, very interesting matchup. I already told you about the bets, so I'm not going to go into detail with that. But any early thoughts on that game? Then that's pretty much the last question I have for you.
Well, my early thoughts is that I would say that the evaluation of quarterbacks that I had in the preseason, Hurts, Ellinger, that Hurts is better than I thought he would be. I thought he would be extremely productive in this offense. Any quarterback with a pulse is going to be productive in that offense, but I did not expect him to be quite this good. Now, again,
what are your thoughts on the teams they've played, though? The context.
Yeah, so that's what I was getting to, was that much like Ohio State, much like fill in the elite team across the country, who have they played? And we continue to see teams play better teams, and this is going to be the best team, especially defensively, that Oklahoma's played. I think that Oklahoma, they mirror each other in opposite ways, where Oklahoma has arguably the best offense in the country and a defense that still has issues, meaning it's a top 60 or 70 defense. That Texas doesn't have nearly the explosive firepower on offense that Oklahoma does, but they have substantially a better defense.
Yeah, just an interesting point. Texas is averaging 42 points per game, and that's still after playing LSU, which I would like to think that LSU is as respectable as Oklahoma, or maybe even more respectable in Oklahoma, especially with the quality defense they have and the quality offense they have, with Joe Burrow being considered in the Heisman race this year. I'm not saying he's going to be a finalist or anything, but his name is being mentioned a lot, especially after the Texas performance. So I think that's a fair analysis. I think that I think that this game could be won by either team. It's kind of like a coin flip.
Sure.
But Texas is going to be playing with a chip on its shoulder because they already have one loss, and they still need to prove to the country that they're back, or they're back enough to be relevant to compete and contend for the Big 12 and the college football playoff, and be at least a top 5 or top 10 team. Not a top 5 team, but a top 10 team at least, which I think they might be a top 10 team this weekend. But after beating Oklahoma, I think that shows to the voters in the country that Texas is still relevant. And they lose this game, they're not out of the Big 12, but they're out of the college football playoff, the national picture, because they'd lose 2 games, and barring a miracle and some crazy stuff happening, I don't think a 2-loss Big 12 team is going to get in anytime soon. So very, very big hopes for us as like Longhorn Nation fans. But I think it's going to be interesting. I'm just going to put it out there. I think you already could tell, but I have put my bets on Texas. Obviously for obvious reasons, but bias aside, I do believe that chip on their shoulder, and just having to prove that national point, and the fact that it's the Red River game and not the Big 12 championship game, I think would put Texas as one of the favorite type of bets to take this weekend. Even though I think the spread will be in favor of OU, maybe like a touchdown or less. It'll be very close. But last question, Mark, what are your thoughts on the spread? Do you think it'll be closer this weekend? Or I guess they come out tomorrow. But
I would expect Oklahoma to be a 6 or 7 point favorite.
Okay, so very marginal then.
Yeah, it was pretty high last year during the regular season, wasn't it? 10 or 12, something in that range?
It was 7.5. But also last year, Texas wasn't as highly rated, right? They coming off a 7-6 season. They had a loss to Maryland. And although they beat teams like USC and TCU, it wasn't as high profile as LSU this year. And also having an AP top 10 finish last year with the Georgia win. So I think that this year, I think the spread is going to be lower than that. But I think it's still, in rivalry games, in my opinion, spreads don't matter, especially when it's Texas-Oklahoma. But yes, you are correct. It was around 7.5 last year. So I think 6.5 or somewhere around that range could be favorable. But I would exercise caution on that spread, or even just betting Oklahoma straight up, because they just haven't played anybody yet. So we don't really know how good they are. But I think that's an interesting point for the rest of the week, because I'm probably going to be arguing with Sooners and Sooner Nation about who's the better team as a typical rivalry. But appreciate the thoughts, Mark. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your weekend.
All right, Deeper Rot. We will talk to you soon. Have a good one. All right. A few people were calling in, so please call me right back, 860-325-3687. I would say that I believe LSU is better than Oklahoma, not by a whole lot, but I think LSU is a better team than Oklahoma. They're nearly as good on offense. They don't have the Jalen Hurts dynamic running ability threat, but defensively, LSU is much, much better than Oklahoma, and therefore a better team. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Matt again.
Hey, Matt. What's up?
Hey, the first time I called, I don't know if I'm not special enough or anything, but you didn't ask me who my favorite team was and when I started watching.
Let me think about that. You're not special enough, Matt. Go ahead with your question.
Okay.
Okay, so Matt, when did you start watching, and who's your favorite team?
I started watching probably about 7 or 8 months ago.
Okay.
And my favorite team is Texas.
So how'd you find me?
I watch a lot of YouTube channels with sports on it, so I found you that way.
Okay, very good. It's good to have you. What's on your mind?
Yep. Who are your top 4 Heisman candidates right now?
Oh, man. The older I get, the less I care about the Heisman. But in regards to who I think, this is always what's funny about predicting the college football playoff and predicting the Heisman, is basically I'm being asked, as is anybody, to predict not what's going to happen on the field, but we're being asked to predict what somebody else is going to select. True?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I think that the 4 best players in the country that are eligible, because as we know, 80% of the guys on the field aren't eligible because they don't play the right position, even though they might be the best players in the country, i.e. Chase Young. The 4 best players that will be eligible for the Heisman, Trevor Lawrence is playing himself out of it. for the most part. He doesn't have any type games big enough to get himself back into it. Travis Etienne is not having a big year. So the Clemson duo, I think, is out of it. Joe Burrow has played as well as anyone. Plus, he has the one huge win on the road against Texas, which might be the biggest win in the country to date. So for me, he's the candidate. I don't care what the stats say. I would want to review the stats before I placed a vote, but off the top of my head, I would vote for Joe Burrow. Jalen Hurts would be right there. Tua and Jonathan Taylor. I think, unless I'm missing somebody, those would be the four that I think are the primary candidates.
I would agree with that. Right now, for me, I think it'd be Joe Burrow too, just because Heisman voters look at big games, and he dominated in a big game.
Yep. I think there are three things to consider when we look at Heisman candidates that usually catch the voter's eye. Number one, statistics, gaudy statistics. When you can say, wow, this running back racked up 227, then 168, then 244. It's kind of the Melvin Gordon factor when he played himself into the Heisman race. His team wasn't great, but his numbers were so ridiculous. And he finished with like 2,300 yards rushing in 2014 that he was a Heisman candidate. Number two would be your team wins, especially if you're a quarterback. If your team's winning, they're undefeated, or maybe have one loss and competing for a national championship, then you're going to be a Heisman candidate. And number three are moments. If there are moments, like if you remember, or maybe you're not old enough to remember, but delving into college football history, 1997, Charles Woodson had moments. He didn't play a position where he could point to statistics. He played for a national championship level team, and he also had moments that captured people's attention. Game-changing kind of plays in big situations, or just jaw-dropping, athletic, freakish athletic kind of plays that people remember. Those are the three things that I believe catch Heisman Trophy voters: statistics, winning, and moments.
I agree with that. And I just want to make a comment about the last caller. I know he's a Texas fan as well, but saying Oklahoma hasn't played anyone is true, but if he has eyes, you can tell by watching they're still a really good football team.
Yes, absolutely.
With a lot of teams, like Ohio State hasn't really played anyone yet. I mean, Michigan State's a good team. I don't think they're great, but they haven't gotten a great test yet. They're still a great football team, in my opinion, probably the best right now. Alabama's still going to be a really good football team, even though they haven't played anyone. It doesn't really matter up to this point because not many teams have played anyone.
Yeah, so exactly. So I base my rankings on who you've played and how you've performed, but when it comes to just evaluating how good teams are, you know, it's pretty sensible to think, okay, Oklahoma's been how good for how many years, and how good were they last year? And they have basically replaced a great quarterback with a nearly as good quarterback, and they recruited a certain level. They're Oklahoma. We know their standard of talent. They bring back basically, you know, large portions of the offense and the defense. I think we've got a pretty good idea who Oklahoma is. The same with Alabama. Why would Alabama just suddenly drop off the cliff and be a 7-5 team? They're not. They're Alabama, and they're one of the top 5 teams in the country, even though they have yet to play anyone to really prove it.
Yeah, I agree. And I said a couple weeks ago, it wasn't on your show, but I think it's someone else's, but I think this year's pretty wide open. I don't really see a dominant team this year because from what I've seen, everyone has a weakness. Like Ohio State, to me, I think they need to get better on run defense from what I've seen. They're good, don't get me wrong, but that's probably if I'm looking like through a microscope and seeing what their weakness is, that'd be their weakness to me. And then obviously Alabama cannot stop running back at all. And then Oklahoma, I think their offensive line is sort of a weakness since, you know, they lost 4 offensive linemen to the NFL draft, just little things. But I don't think there's one dominant team this year. Like last year, I think Clemson stood out above everyone else.
Okay, Matt. Anything else, man?
No, that'll probably do it. Thanks for taking my call.
All right, Matt. Have a good one.
You too.
So I'm going to disagree with Deep Barat. Just one of the comments that he made when he first got on was, what a college football weekend. Was it really a great college football weekend? Every college football weekend's great because we want to watch football, but I don't know that there was necessarily any great games. Florida-Auburn turned out to be a decent game, but it was pretty much decided with about 7 or 8 minutes left. Ohio State and Michigan State did not turn out to be a good game. What other games did we have that were really that entertaining? MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
This is Uncle Lou. I sure hope everybody got a good look at my number 3 ranked Georgia Bulldogs tonight in that absolute trouncing of Tennessee. Shout out to the Vols. Huge, could be program defining even. Moral victory for Tennessee in that first quarter, though. So shout out to all my ball buddies here. And can we just? I know you're dying to talk more about the Heisman. I could really tell from the last call. But can we just stop with the? You want to point at Burrow's numbers? Fine. Stop pretending that the numbers or a win over Texas in week 2 is going to have anything to do with whether he wins the Heisman or not. No one in the history of the Heisman has won because of anything they did or didn't do in week 2. They play these moments. They have to happen. They don't happen week 2. They play Alabama in November. That's what has to happen. If he goes out and goes for 100 yards against Alabama and they lose, no one's going to care what he did against Texas in week 2. If he goes out and throws for 500 yards and beats Bama, also no one's going to care what he did against Texas in week 2. You cannot win the Heisman from a moment in week 2. That's insane. I don't know what that guy's talking about. He had a big moment over Texas in week 2. Texas might be a 4-loss team in November. Who's going to care either way? So, but yeah, what else? Not much. Ohio State looked good again. No surprise there to anybody that knows anything about college football. But have they played anybody now or no? Does Michigan State count? I don't know how the who have they played thing works. Do you?
I don't know. We may need to take a poll on that, or I don't know who's the official judge of who have you played. Yeah, I think somebody out there is.
Official judge. Michigan. Who has the number 1 rush defense in America?
Michigan State.
And Ohio State ran for 300 and what?
Yeah, nobody's running like that against Michigan State. I haven't seen that against a Spartans defense in forever.
Well, you saw it today.
Yep. Yeah.
Georgia fans going nuts because Justin Fields had 2 interceptions. They're pointing and laughing. They're like, he only had 210 yards. See, they pretend rushing yards don't count because we have Jake Fromm. So they say, he only had 210 yards. Meanwhile, 210 yards, that's higher than, that's Fields' worst game. That's higher than Fromm's average. What are these people doing? Why can't they just admit that Justin Fields is a great quarterback? I don't understand. And you left him off your list, too, which is the main reason I called in. I'm going to assume that was by mistake.
Well, Lou, yeah, you were very perceptive in diagnosing my interest in the Heisman Trophy vote, but I know it's part of the deal, and I got to address it. I used to do Heisman videos all the time because people watch them, so I should do it because people click on them. But I haven't talked about the Heisman in forever. But the guy just threw out the question. I scanned the country. Those are the 4 I came up with. Absolutely, Justin Fields came into this game with what, 23 touchdowns? So he's around 26. Yeah, that's quite a few touchdowns, and he's probably going to be quarterbacking an undefeated team. So that hits the criteria that I outlined, at least for what I think are a Heisman Trophy candidates. Yeah, he's going to be close.
That's about that. Jake Fromm had his best game of the season, though. I know you said you didn't get a chance to watch the whole game and you DVR'd it. He had a good game. I mean, again with the 80% completions in that. But even his he took some shots downfield today. You'll see when you watch it. And there were several times in this game where there was incompletions, but they were like on 25-yard passes downfield. And I was like, I'm happy with that's okay with me. Like that at least lets the defense know you're willing to try that.
Yeah.
You know? And you're going to be impressed with that Tennessee that quarterback from Tennessee too when you watch that game.
Maurer. Kid.
He looked good.
I saw him get knocked out of the game. I was watching at the point that he got knocked out of the game, and then he brought in Garantano, who completed a nice ball, and then Morrow came back in and he threw a pick.
Yeah. He played really good. He played great in the first quarter. He played good in the second quarter, and in the second half, it kind of started to unravel a little bit. But Kirby's kind of got he's done that to a few quarterbacks where we've sort of gotten lit up in the first half. It happened against Missouri two seasons ago, and he's made some adjustments at halftime, sort of shut him down. But they put a graphic on the screen at some point in the second half that Maurer, he started out 10 of 17. That's pretty good against the UJ defense for a guy making his first start. He started out 10 of 17, but then he started the second half out 1 for 9. And it just went downhill from there for him. But Tennessee came out ready to play. I mean, they weren't, there were some people that thought like Tennessee wouldn't even show up kind of thing, like just, we ain't got no chance, what's the point type of thing. But they wanted to win this game more when it kicked off in the beginning. And then, which we saw what happens a lot of times when Georgia plays these inferior teams. Depth became an issue in the second half. We had running backs in the second half that only had 4 and 5 carries. They were, they were still 100% good to go, and Tennessee's defense was just gassed. But
I heard
actually proud of them in the first quarter.
Lou, I heard tonight during the broadcast that Tennessee has not beaten a top 10 team since 2006.
Yeah, they're like 0 for 30.
Yeah, I was thinking in that conference they got to play maybe an average of 4 a year, 3 to 4 a year, top 10 teams.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's something. It's in the high 20s now, because I remember seeing a graphic over the summer that said they were 0 for 25 or something, 26. So they're coming up on 0 for the last 30. Yeah, against top 10 teams, but hard to rag on them because they just don't stack up to UJ. But they came out in the beginning of this game, and I mean they gave us everything we wanted in the first. Definitely in the first quarter. I mean, they were winning 2 different times in the first half. They're beating us at two different times. So, but per usual, UJ just too much. Just ran over them.
What do you think after you saw Florida and Auburn? What do you think of the Gators' chances against you guys?
Man, well, first off, it happened sort of like we talked about last night. That home crowd, I think, had a big impact on Bo Nix. It ended up being a lot like the LSU game from last season in that way. I'm still not impressed with Florida's offense. I mean, one of their touchdowns their first touchdown was a 6-yard pass, a slant route where a guy missed a tackle and the receiver ran 80 yards and scored.
Yeah.
Their second touchdown was like a 10-yard drive off a muff punt. And then the touchdown at the very end was kind of a garbage 80-yard touchdown run. The game was already over, missed tackles. I'm still not that impressed with Florida's offense overall. Defensively, they played even better than I thought they would. Like, I knew they would get to Bo Nix and rattle him with him being a true freshman and playing on the road and all that, against a really good defense. But Florida's defense played even better than I thought it would. But I still just think their offense isn't anywhere close to where it needs to be to compete with a real contender. So I mean, they're not going to shut Georgia's offense down in Jacksonville. That's not going to happen. I don't care how good their defense is; they're not shutting that offense down. So I just can't see them scoring enough points to win that game against UJ. I think they'll get blown out at LSU next week. And I think Georgia probably beat them by a couple of scores.
Well, that's going to tell us a whole lot. If they can back up this performance and go to LSU and not necessarily win, but if they stay within a score at LSU, then that's going to show me something.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, this game was hard. Like I was not high on Auburn at all, and then the Mississippi State game happened, and I was confused. I was like, wait a minute here. What's going on here? Auburn's offense looks like it knows what it's doing. And then today it was right back to the Gus Malzahn, I'm a PE coach, let's draw up some high school plays type of. You just watch that offense. And the thing is with Auburn's offense, and this is stating the obvious, when it's working, like there's no in between with Auburn's offense. Like it either looks unstoppable or it looks like they've never practiced. And that's what's got to be frustrating for the Auburn fans, because you watch the Mississippi State game, and I get it. Their defense isn't on the level of a Florida, but Mississippi State's in the top half of defenses in the SEC for sure. And they just shredded them. And then they come out there today, and it's just nothing. I mean, nothing went right for them. I mean, it was a struggle to get a first down. And I don't know. It's got to be frustrating for the Barner to watch that, because there's no middle ground there. It's all or nothing with a Gus Malzahn offense. And unfortunately for the Barner, this year it looks like it's a lot closer to nothing.
And I think this kid's going to be a good quarterback. He's a really good player. He, I think I said it off the top just in regards to what I see. He's got the arm strength. He's got the mobility. He's a gamer. He's tough. He's a leader, but he's so inconsistent and throws the ball all over the place as you don't know what you're going to get at this point. I think that's going to get cleaned up. He's only a freshman, but you can't beat teams like that on the road going 11 for 27. And he was 11 for 27. He had a couple drops in there, but still he was 11 for 27. Those balls were all over the place.
Yeah.
And threw two costly
not
picks.
Not everybody can be Jake Fromm, Mark. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he can throw those.
Not everybody as a freshman can carry their team to an SEC title, a playoff win, the national title game. I mean, Bo Nix has a chance to be okay. Just because he's not as good as Jake Fromm doesn't mean he's not any good.
That's right.
But anyway, let the Barners type on that. Great day of college football. Can't wait to do it all again next week. Have a great morning, Mark.
Appreciate it, Lou. Have a good one, man. Uncle Lou, the incomparable one. Oh, here we go.
The call will start at the beep.
Hey, it's Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark, it's Colin. I just want to give a shout out to Uncle Lou. Just called before this. So let him know. I'm a Florida fan, so I talked to you a couple times already, but I just want to get your opinion on a couple things. But I want to say shout out to Georgia. I do think that after today, watching Georgia, watching the first couple games, Notre Dame, this game, I do feel like Florida might have a chance because I feel like our defense is really, really good. I don't think our offense is that great, but defensively, I don't know if they're going to be able to, they're a rushing team for the most part. But I want to get your opinion on a couple things. So I just wanted to see what your thoughts are. This is the first time our defense has actually been on the field healthy for the first time. And I wanted to see what your thoughts were with the game today with Auburn. Do you think the defense? I don't think our defense got enough credit for what they actually are for this season.
So before I answer that question, I'm going to ask you why your offense isn't that good, because this is what I see is that the offensive line was the unit on your team that during the preseason, during the offseason was the most questionable because you lost like 140 starts and 4 or 5 starters. But they played pretty well today. They run blocked against one of the best defensive lines in the country and kept Trask upright most of the time. I was really impressed with Emory Jones for the little bit that he played. I didn't know that he could be that accurate throwing the ball downfield, and they gave him the kind of throws down the middle of the field that he could make, but still, I thought he was really good. And you've got one of the best wide receiver cores in the SEC. So I'm trying to figure out why this offense doesn't work. And I agree, the offense is not great. Didn't play that well against Miami or Kentucky, with obviously a different quarterback in. But the offense, if you look at the specific units on the offense, it should be better as a whole, I think.
See, that's where I was like, to me, and watching every game, watching the defensive line and going through and like watching back over like play by play, we have it's one dimensional. We cannot run the ball at all. So that we have to either line up and run some type of like misdirection play to have any type of rushing offense at all. I mean, unless you wear defense down or you get like one lucky play like we did today. So P. Ryan had one play where he got an outside block and he broke a tackle and ran.
Yeah, sure.
But for the most part, it just doesn't happen for the most part.
Okay. So you're basically asking what of me? How good is Florida?
No, I'm just thinking. I mean, defensive wise. I mean, I've watched most of your. I'll watch all of your live shows and stuff, and I've watched your predictions. I just want to see like defensive wise because I feel like you and any other person doesn't give Florida's defense enough credit. I'm just wondering, like defensively, do you think that defense, like now that we actually have our whole defense back, do you think that that's like going to be something that could lead us to I don't even know if we'll beat LSU next week. Probably not. But I do think we can compete with Georgia. I just want to see what your opinion is on that.
So you've played
early prediction.
You've played three offenses that have some semblance of talent, and the one that you played today has the most talent of the three. So you've played Miami, which Miami's got a garbage offense, but they have talent on the offense at the wide receiver and running back positions in particular, but the offensive line is awful. So you embarrassed Miami and their offensive line. You ran through them for what, 10 or 11 sacks? So that was a bit of a train wreck that you guys just completely took advantage of an awful offensive line. And a first-time starter at quarterback. The Kentucky offense, we know that it's pretty marginal, that it had to replace its best running back, Benny Snell. Terry Wilson's not a downfield thrower, and you put together about as much of a performance in that game that I would expect. Auburn's the best offense that you've faced to date, but it's difficult to get a complete read when the quarterback plays that inconsistent. And I thought Bo Nix was that inconsistent today. Like he legitimately went 11 of 27. Like there weren't many drops in that 11 of 27. And sure, he was harassed, but any quarterback facing a top 10 to 15 defense in the nation is going to get harassed a little bit. Like he missed throws consistently. And I think he's a good player and will be a much better player. But if you take a top 20 quarterback in the nation and you put him in Bo Nix's place today, he's going to hit on 18 or 19 out of 27 throws and not 11, and not throw those three awful interceptions. Two of them were awful. That might have been the difference in the game right there. So I think your defense played extremely well, but you also got helped out by the quarterback.
But that's what I was saying, is the fact that this is the first time we actually had our whole defense back from the last 3.5 weeks. So, I mean, we had Zuniga was out, Henderson was out. I mean, that's a huge loss on our defensive side. So it's the first time we had them back. So, like, that's what I was basically saying is we had our first, like, full active defense. And I really think that, like, that is you have the pressure and you have the corners that can cover people. I mean, I feel like that makes a difference, but I don't think anyone's going to talk about that.
So, yeah, what I want to see is you guys play against LSU. And my standard's not going to be my standard is not going to be that you need to hold them to 14 points. That's ridiculous. They're going to get their yardage and points, but they have the one game that they played, obviously, against a big opponent was at Texas, and they put up, 45 points and 500 yards passing, close to it. So let me say this would be a strong performance from your defense. If you could hold LSU to somewhere in the high 20s to 30-point range, and something in the range of 300 yards passing and 120 to 50 rushing, that would be a pretty strong performance.
Well, we can say this. If we hold them to 30 points, we have no chance of winning that game. Period. I mean, even at 30, I mean, that's like, that's me pushing it for a close. Yeah, I mean, if we hold them to, I would say I would be happy to hold them to 20 to 30, I guess. But I don't even know if we would score 20 to 30 just because it's a road game. Oh, it's going to be a terrible road game. But, yeah, I mean, if we hold them to that, I would be happy with that. I just want to see what your thoughts are. Like, I mean, with our full defense back, I feel like maybe we could. But if they score 30 points, there's no chance that we have a chance in that game. But, yeah.
I'm going to give your team about a 25 to 30% chance of winning.
Yeah, that sounds about right. No, I agree with you. That's all I wanted to get. But thanks for taking my call.
Hey, have a good one. Appreciate the call.
Yep, you too. All right, bye.
Florida LSU should be a good one. Of course, the Gators won that game in the Swamp. Lou and I talked about it last night. I believe LSU was a better team overall than Florida start to finish last year, but they did lose in the Swamp. Joe Burrow threw a bad pick in that one late in the game to seal it. But give the Gators credit. They haven't looked great this season, but they're winning the games. And up until now, the best wins were against Kentucky and Miami, who are like top 50 teams in the nation. But today they beat a legitimate top 10 to 15 team in Auburn. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
This is Eli.
Eli, what's going on?
Nothing. Yeah, I was wondering, what are your thoughts on like which of the group of 5 teams will be the representative in a New Year's Six bowl? Like, I feel like it's so up in the air at this point.
Well, what I would like to see is the schedule. So right now, Boise State's undefeated, correct? And
Yeah, they are.
they would seem to be the front runner.
Yeah, of course, the BYU and Utah State games could be the ones that trip them up at this point.
BYU, Utah State. Well, I think they're better than Utah State, but yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if they lost that game.
They play those teams on the road, though.
Yeah, we certainly have Memphis to consider, and Memphis has yet to play UCF. I don't know if they're going to play them in the regular season, but of course they've got the conference championship game, and they've got Cincinnati yet to play. So Memphis, Boise State would seem to me, off the top of my head, to be the two main contenders.
Yeah, or SMU. I mean, I guess the SMU Memphis game will determine who wins that division.
Yeah, so I forgot about SMU. Of course, they came back and played a great second half to pull out the win against Tulsa tonight.
I mean, that was an ugly win, but a win's a win if you're an SMU fan.
Absolutely. SMU's been down forever. This is a big season for them. Best start since 1984, I believe. And a huge win tonight for them.
Yeah, and then so I guess today, I mean, they would hold the tiebreaker over UCF now, so they can have one loss and still get to the championship game.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It almost seems like it's almost getting to the point where I'm even wondering if it's even going to come out of the AAC since they're just beating the heck out of each other.
Yeah, I don't have the schedules in front of me, but again, if I had to put money on it, I'm going Boise State 1, Memphis 2 would be my selections for the most likely to make it to the New Year's Six.
Okay, I have the Memphis schedule right in front of me. They
play
at Temple versus Tulane. At Tulsa, they host SMU. They're at Houston, out to South Florida, and then they host Cincinnati.
So do you watch these teams on a regular basis? I don't see a whole lot of group of 5, mostly on Thursday and Friday night.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, Tulane's a team that's been a lot better than I thought, so they get them at home. So that should probably be a win, but you never really know. An SMU game, that game, I think the SMU and Cincinnati games, they're fortunate that they get them at home, but those are, either one could easily be a loss. Like, those games will probably be really good games.
Okay. Who do you root for?
I mean, I'm a Liberty fan, so I don't really care who is a New Year's Six bowl. I'm very interested because I like to pay attention to the group of 5s, but I'm also thinking, like, what if App State ends up being the group of 5 rep in a New Year's Six bowl?
Sure, they could be. So they're undefeated as well, and they've got a win against North Carolina.
Yeah, that was a big win, and then they also played South Carolina later in the year too, on the road, and I think that's a winnable game for them.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I mean, as long as they don't slip up against like Louisiana Lafayette or Georgia Southern or Troy or something, they would probably need some help, but it would be interesting to see. Like, I don't know, has the Sun Belt team ever been in the New Year's Six or a BCS bowl? I don't think they ever have.
No.
Okay, so they could be the first ones to ever accomplish that, but they would probably need a lot of help for, like, it seems like they would need the American Athletic Conference to keep. They probably need the chaos to continue in that conference, and then they probably need Boise State to either get upset in the championship game or to just slip one, sort of have a random loss to Utah State or BYU or something.
Yeah, those spots during the BCS and the playoff era have been reserved for the American Conference and the Mountain West, excluding an appearance by Northern Illinois in the Orange Bowl against Florida State in 2012. And we had P.J. Fleck in Western Michigan make the Cotton Bowl in 2016.
Yeah. I mean, it seems, well, when you really think about it, you think about the group of 5 and Power 5 divide, it seems like it should really, I think the American and Mountain West are more Power 5 than Group of 5s, in my opinion.
Yeah, we had a little exercise last night where we matched up the American Conference against the ACC.
What if we did the Mountain West versus the American Athletic. Like, the Mountain West is a really good conference, too.
Yeah, it is. It's a very good conference. The Pac-12 has had fits against the Mountain West in recent years. San Diego State's beaten Stanford. They've beaten Arizona State. Yeah, there have been a lot of big wins by the Air Force beat Colorado this year.
Yeah, that was a surprise. But, and I mean, the MAC and Conference USA, other than the couple of exceptions you mentioned, it's like they almost never have a team that's good enough to even be in a New Year's Six Bowl. And the Sun Belt, I mean, their only possible hope would be App State.
Absolutely. Anything else on your mind?
I guess I was thinking like when it comes to the ACC and their both teams, like, who the heck is Virginia Tech? I mean, they beat Miami and then they look terrible and then they beat Miami. Like, I can't figure them out.
Well, I can figure them out. They're not that good, but they played a team that is evidently much worse than any of us thought in Miami. Considering Virginia Tech beat Furman by a touchdown, and anybody can play one bad game, but Virginia Tech's not been good for a year and a half.
That'd be pretty funny if both teams ended up missing out on a bowl game.
It would be pretty pathetic if those teams that play in the Coastal Division miss out on bowl games just because they play each other and they mount wins because of that, because it's just a bad division. And looking at Miami's schedule, I thought in picking Miami 8-4 when the season started that the odds were against me because I thought the schedule was so bad. I thought, Mark, even though you think they're an 8-4 team, they've got to win more games than that. Who are they going to lose to? Because the schedule's so bad. But sure enough, they're losing to the likes of Virginia Tech and North Carolina.
Yeah, I guess if you look at the Coastal, like UVA is probably pretty much a lock to get to a bowl game. I mean, heck, they might even make a New Year's Six bowl.
Sure.
I mean, I could see them going like 10-2 or probably 11-2, assuming they get their butts kicked against Clemson in the championship game. And then let's see, Duke is probably a 50-50. I'm going to say North Carolina gets to a bowl game. And then Pitt, I'm going to say Pitt probably goes to a bowl game. Georgia Tech probably has no chance of it. So if you look at that division, probably about only 3 or 4 teams go bowling.
Yeah. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of 7-5 teams in that division. 7-5, 6-6 teams. They're going to beat up on each other. Maybe somebody emerges as a better team than that, and that's most likely Virginia. And that's who I thought it was going to be at the beginning of the season. And even their record's probably only going to be 8-4, maybe 9-3.
Yeah, who do you think is the second best team in the ACC? Wake Forest or UVA?
Whoa, that's a great question. That's a great question. I think it is Wake Forest, and that's how bad the ACC is.
Yeah, because, I mean, you look at the other division, the Atlantic, I mean, Florida State's been very mediocre. Louisville's been better than I thought, but I still don't see them getting into a bowl game. And then Boston College lost to Louisville. I mean, they might not get to a bowl game either. NC State, they'll probably get there as a mediocre 6-6 team, and Syracuse will probably get there as a mediocre 6 or 7 win team.
Yeah, Boston College lost to Kansas by 24 points.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, I don't know that they'll even go to a bowl game. And losing to Kansas and Louisville, teams I never thought they would have lost to.
I gotcha. Anything else, sir?
Yeah, no, I'll let you go now.
Okay. Have a good one, man. I appreciate the call. You have a great weekend. We'll talk soon.
And bye.
All right. 12:14 a.m. Eastern Time. MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, will release our top 25. That actually makes sense sometime tomorrow. And trying to look at the college football weekend and figure out maybe some other content offerings. So if you have any recommendations, suggestions, or requests, let me know on what you would like to see me recap for the weekend or look ahead to next week. Keep under consideration that we will blow out the week 7 previews just like we did in week 6 We must have produced 15 to 20 previews on games for week 6. We will do more of the same for week 7. So if you have any requests for any specific games, let me know. Task Money 870. Let me get you the call-in number, which is 860-325-3687, 860-325-3687, and I'll leave it right there. You can get my weekly predictions if you go to the description section of any of the videos and grab the link next to Voice of College Football Community. And it's really not about my predictions. It's more about the community that we're building there on Patreon. So please grab the link. I think the feature that's really cool that was recommended and suggested by you is that I do an exclusive live stream each and every week in which I bring on you, the viewer, subscriber, part of our community, bring you on and we talk college football. And we do a roundtable talking college football with a number of you. So that is out there each and every week on Patreon as an offer to you to join a live stream and talk college football with me. Also, a number of other offerings there on Patreon. So there you go. So it would be my week 7 college football predictions available exclusively at the Voice of College Football Community. And again, that's just one portion of it. We also have a community there in which we deliver more content right there. And again, a live stream that you had about 20 or 25 of you recommend or request that I do each and every week with you. All right. The Amazon link is in the description section of all the videos as well. Back to the comments. The number's 860-325-3687. There it is, 860-325-3687. I apologize if you've got some like really witty comment that you made in the live chat. I try to get to as many comments as possible. Keep in mind that if I pass your comment, I can only go back about 5 to 10 comments and pull them to the screen. So if I miss yours, I can't go back and get it, if that makes any sense. All right, Cheryl, I said SEC teams will beat up each other. No way they put 3 teams in. Man, we're already at a point where we're talking about the SEC putting in 3 teams. Dennis, winning in the shoe ain't anything. OU won there and even planted their flag at the 50. Nobody stopped them. Dennis, that was a one-time occurrence. Also, remember what happened the year before. So really, Ohio State and Oklahoma fans, nobody has the argument on the other. Nobody can really talk trash to the other fan base. I don't think. Yes, Ohio State lost the game. They were winning in the fourth quarter. They got completely outplayed in the fourth quarter and outclassed and lost 31-16. That Oklahoma team did have, we didn't know it at the time, but the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. And a lot of my friends, it was funny, were texting me because they were so pissed off at Baker Mayfield that night as Ohio State fans. And I mentioned to one of them, he might be your next quarterback in the NFL. They were like, what? Baker Mayfield? We've got the number 1 pick. Yeah, he might be your quarterback. And they don't mind him now. But Ohio State did trounce Oklahoma worse than Oklahoma beat Ohio State a year earlier in Norman. So, Dennis, just understand that. And that was in 2017 and 16. Prince, Michigan State's defensive stats were also measured against retard competition on offense. No wonder they have great stats. Okay. Prince, I love you. Michigan State's got an excellent defense. It's the same defense that they played with last year that shut down a ton of teams. Justin Herbert and Oregon scored 1 touchdown, scored 7 points. Michigan Ohio State, Dwayne Haskins, they shut all these teams down. Don't look at the scores. Ohio State scored 26 points. Their offense did practically nothing in that game against Michigan State. All right. If there's anything else in the live chat, I will get to it hopefully, or you can just yell at me on the phone. Here's the number, and we're going to look at next week's schedule. Here we go. This is what you need to do. We've got 114 on the line. I would hope all 114 of you have subscribed. And if you haven't, I'm guessing that's because you haven't watched the videos. So check out what we produce here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football on a daily basis. Give it a shot. Give it a look. And for those of you who watch me on a regular basis and would like to help us build the channel, please contribute in a number of ways. Like the videos. Takes about 2 seconds, a couple clicks of a mouse. Like the videos, please. Comment. Of course, you are, but also comment to the videos. I will do more video reactions to the comments coming up. I did one last week. It was a lot of fun to go through the insightful on one end all the way to the idiotic comments on the other end and address those. I then recognize how many people don't listen to the videos. They like to comment to what they think I said, but they don't actually listen to what I said. So you have that. But I will respond to the viewer comments. But please subscribe. Again, if you're not sold, please check out the videos because I work my tail off to try to provide the best in college football content. If you like to throw some money at the games, this is a deal, I'm telling you. Go to the link in the description section of any of the videos next to the hashtag SamStrong. Go to that link. Follow that to betnow.eu. Use the promo code MRTVCFB. MRTVCFB. Mark Rogers TV, MRTVCFB. Use that promo code. Go to the link right there. And for every dollar that you put in your account, they throw $1 at you. So if you put in $100, they double your money. If you throw in $50, they double your money. So you are playing with their money right out of the gate. So it's quite a deal. So betnow.eu, and maybe you can even listen to my predictions. So the 4 plays that I made tonight were Northwestern +7. They only lost by 3. That's a winner. Michigan State and 20.5. Buckeyes won 34-10, right? Didn't quite get that one, so there's a loss. I also took Minnesota -14 against Illinois. The Gophers covered. And my 4th play was... It was a winner. Who was it? Who was it? Who was it? I don't remember. Who else did I play today that won? I was 3 out of 4. I don't know. Penn State, Michigan State, Wisconsin. Who played a noon game? I think it was all the way back at noon. I won a game pretty handily. Won a game back around that time. Oh, maybe I took Texas Tech and 10 points against Oklahoma State, and they actually won the game by 10. Yeah. So anyway, I hit 3 out of 4 against the spread in the games that I actually played. But I pick all the top 25 games, and any other games that are relevant. I predict them all. You can catch my predictions plus exclusive content, live streams with you, featuring you You come on, we talk college football at our Voice of College Football community. All right, let's look at the matchups for week 7. Let's see what we got. We know we've got Florida LSU. And I also would like you guys to let me know if there are any special topics that you want me to hit on this week. I had a number of requests this week, including the latest one was somebody requested this morning a viewer's guide, Clemson Alum 98. So I delivered that. I'm having some problems with my computer because I had one of the games on here. And so that ran out, and it's giving me some problems. But here we go. Here we go. Schedule. Here we go for week 7. And it looks like this Washington-Stanford game is a pretty good game. We got 11 minutes left in the third quarter. Looks like I'm going to take in the rest of this game. Stanford's pulling off the upset, and I took Stanford in 16.5. So there's another winner. Hopefully, still a lot of game to be played. And Stanford has the ball at their own 45, down or up 13-10 with 11 minutes left in the third quarter. All right, next week, we got App State in action on Wednesday night at Louisiana. That's a TV game on ESPN2. Thursday, Syracuse, NC State. Not bad. It's a Thursday night game, and it's the only college football we got, so watch it. Syracuse, NC State, ESPN, Thursday night. On Friday, Virginia at Miami, a game that I was touting. Yes, I'm embarrassed by this statement, but I was touting it as potentially the game in the ACC Coastal Division. Fortunately, even though the entire offseason I was thinking, Miami's got the best talent. They've got the best roster. I've got to pick Miami. Fortunately, I came to my senses and I picked Virginia to win the ACC Coastal Division. So my predictions are looking pretty good at this point. I picked Ohio State, Nebraska in the Big Ten. I picked Clemson, Virginia in the ACC, Alabama, Georgia in the SEC, Oklahoma, Texas to play in the Big 12 championship game, and Oregon, Utah in the Pac-12. Okay, back to the schedule for next weekend. Virginia at Miami. And for as bad as Miami's been, they're 0-2 in the conference. They're 0-2 in the conference, and they could play themselves back into it because the Coastal Division is going to be up in the air if Miami can beat Virginia. If the Cavaliers win this game, they may run away with the division. They've already beaten Pitt. They'd have a win over Miami, and I'm sure they beat somebody else in there that I'm not thinking about. I'm trying to come up with. So anyway, that's our Friday night game, Virginia at Miami. We also have a nice little night game on the West Coast, Colorado at Oregon. All right, Saturday. Looks like most of the game times are set. At noon, South Carolina at Georgia. Oklahoma, Texas, obviously is the game of the noon window Eastern time. Michigan, Illinois. Maryland, Purdue, Mississippi State, Tennessee. Rutgers, Indiana. Memphis, Temple. Those are the games at noon, including Georgia Tech taking on Duke at 12:30. So for me, yeah, I want to see this Miami-Virginia game because I want to see how good Virginia is, and I want to see them. I want to see the teams that is most likely going to play Clemson in the ACC championship game. At noon, I am going to be watching Oklahoma, Texas. Absolutely. That is the game. My second screen is going to be on Georgia, South Carolina, for as long as that's competitive. And my third screen is going to be on Mississippi State, Tennessee. I got to say, full disclosure, all things equal, I'm going to watch the Big Ten and the SEC over anybody else. All right, at 3:30, we've got Alabama, Texas A&M, which doesn't appear to be the game that we anticipated it was going to be during the offseason, but it's still number 1 versus number 25. Florida State, Clemson, Michigan State, Wisconsin. So we've got 3 pretty good games at 3:30. Arizona State's hosting Washington State. We also have Houston and Cincinnati. Oh, you guys realize who's playing at 3:30 next Saturday at InfoCision Stadium? We have the Kent State Golden Flashes taking on crosstown rival Akron. What more do I need to say? So at 3:30, my game is definitely, well, I guess my game's going to be Michigan State, Wisconsin, followed by Alabama, Texas A&M, but also Clemson, Florida State's a good one. 3 screens are going to be fired up at 3:30 next week. Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Who's on the line?
This is Mike from Illinois.
Hey, Mike, what's going on, man?
Nothing too much, Mark. What you think about those Buckeyes, man?
Well, they're looking pretty good, and the competition supposedly getting better, and they just keep racking up the wins, and they were mostly dominant once they started to kick it into gear on offense, which took about 3 series. Michigan State's got an excellent defense, but they couldn't handle them.
I agree with you there. That first quarter was looking a little shaky, though. It was almost as if them boys hadn't been punched in the mouth like that before. But great showing from Ryan Day and the coaching staff. Really, I noticed he's really good at making adjustments on the fly. I didn't really see that too often with Urban, but that's a mark of a good coach to be, because he's a young coach and he's on his way. But that's a real good sign right there.
The other good sign for this offense, sir, is that they could move the Michigan State defensive front, because they're arguably the best in the country. They're a top 5 defensive front, and the Ohio State offensive line in run blocking mowed them down, ran the ball for 300 yards, JK 180, something in that range. Nobody does that to Michigan State.
You're absolutely right. I was completely shocked at that. I was thinking, well, maybe we'll get a few running yards here and there, but I thought that we would have opened them up in the passing more, kind of like what Indiana did with them last week, because Indiana wasn't able to run on them, but they they were able to get them with the passing. But that offensive line at Ohio State, Coach Stud, he a good coach. Got them boys ready.
Yeah, it looks like it. It would be hard to fathom that this team is going to have the same kind of letdown that the last 2 teams had on the road. Not that they're not capable of losing a game, but not having that kind of performance like Iowa and Purdue.
I can't see that happening. I agree with you. It's just like you said, they can lose a game, but just to drop a game on the road, which was happenstance these past couple seasons, I can't see that happening. I think that Ryan Day, as well as the coaching staff that was there and the coaching staff that he's brought on, he just got these boys playing different. It's like it's a new day. No pun intended, but it's a new day at Ohio State, and it's working.
It is working, and for as good as Dwayne Haskins was and is, just to have the element and the component of the running quarterback, and I made this comment this week to somebody who asked me which offense was better, and I said, as long as Justin Fields protects the football, makes the right throws, he's got so many playmakers, and he's got so much talented wide receiver that if he is 80 to 90% of the passer Dwayne Haskins is, he doesn't have to be as good as Dwayne Haskins, but if he's 75, 80% of the passer Dwayne Haskins is, he provides such a threat to the defense running the ball that Haskins didn't. It just adds another dimension that was absent. For as good as that offense was last year, and it was prolific, it was pretty one-dimensional. JK had an off year. Haskins couldn't threaten a defense. And they've completely exploded this year in those areas.
Yes, and they are firing on all cylinders in just about every aspect of the game. My only gripe was Harbill's first missed kick.
Yeah.
But I was kind of iffy about that, because I know that he's not that great of a kicker, but he did what he had to do. He came through in the end, which was great. I'm glad that we made it through the first 6 weeks unscathed.
And I think, just like Ryan Day said in his press conference, once they go back and look over the tape, this might be a whole other monster for these next 6 weeks. Mark, what you think?
Well, I know that this Northwestern game that appeared to be a rough patch or a possible trap game a Friday night at Northwestern, we know how tough they play, how fundamentally sound they are, isn't quite the matchup that we thought it was going to be. They'll come out, they'll play hard, they'll play smart, they won't be intimidated, they'll come to play, but their offense is so limited. It's difficult to watch them play offense. They have no explosive players, and they are just going to be so hampered. And to watch that defensive front against Northwestern's offensive line, because I've seen Northwestern play quite a bit of football this year, and their offensive line, just because of the lack of playmakers and spacing on the perimeter, their offensive line just gets ambushed by the likes of Stanford and Wisconsin. Wait till they see Chase Young and company. It's going to be, oh my goodness.
Oh boy, they're going to be in for a long night up there in Evanston. It's a weird game because it's on a Friday night.
Yeah.
The boys, they're not used to that, but.
And I have all the respect in the world for Northwestern. They'll come and they'll fight and they'll be prepared and they'll do their best. But man, they may hang in there for a half, but I can't imagine much more than that.
Yeah, it has a propensity to get ugly, and I really feel for their offensive line. I felt the same way about Michigan State tonight because I was reading that they had I want to say, was it like a fourth string left tackle? He did his best.
Yeah.
But Northwestern is going to be in for it's going to be a nice ride for them because you were absolutely correct. They have no explosive plays. I wouldn't be surprised with the way that Ohio State takes off on teams in the first half. We may be looking at another Cincinnati, Miami of Ohio type game.
Mm-hmm. It could be like that.
Great. Well, Mark, I'm not going to hold you up. I just ran across your channel. I saw the phone number up there. I said I'm going to give him a call.
So this would be the first time. So this would be the first time that you've come across my channel.
No. I am an avid watcher of your channel. I actually, is it Wednesday nights when you do the Ohio State Live?
Yes, sir.
With Gerderman and the
yeah.
Other, I mean, there's a girl and there's other. Yeah, I watch that every week.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
No problem.
You have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. So there you have it. Next week, we've got the big Florida LSU matchup in Death Valley. We've got Nebraska, Minnesota play a pretty decent game at 7:30 on a Saturday night with the Gophers, one of the lone undefeated teams. And as I saw in the live chat, many of you believe to be the worst undefeated team in the country, along with maybe SMU, maybe Baylor, but undefeated nonetheless. We've got, of course, the matchups at 3:30 with, they're marquee matchups, but there's a decided favorite. They could be ugly games or they could be very intriguing games. Clemson against a Florida State team that I've certainly knocked quite a bit this past year and a half, but they are playing better. And not so much based on the performance and the wins against Louisville and against NC State, but the performance that they had on the road at Virginia, where they came within 3 yards of winning or tying the game and sending it into overtime. So I think there is, taking the North Carolina effort against Clemson, there is some hope for Florida State. I think they've got about a 10% puncher's chance of pulling off an upset against Clemson. Not going to happen, but they've got a chance. They are a much better football team today than what they were showing us a month ago, and maybe much of that has to do with Alex Hornibrook's play at quarterback. So Florida State, Clemson at 3:30, along with Alabama, Texas A&M. I would love to see the Aggies put up a fight at home, but they have been a disappointment to me this season. They're not as good as I thought they would be, considering how well they played last November, played Clemson last year, and played in the bowl game and throttling NC State. I expected much more out of Texas A&M this year. And then, the other 3:30 matchup that is intriguing is, of course, Michigan State, despite the effort tonight, taking on Wisconsin on the road. We'll see if Sparty can bounce back and put up a fight against what might be the second best team in the Big Ten. Penn State's got a matchup against Iowa on ABC next Saturday night. That's going to be interesting. Iowa had all sorts of difficulty blocking Michigan today. Otherwise, Michigan, Iowa, toss-up. They would probably split 10 games. Maybe Michigan wins 6 of them, but Iowa could not block Michigan. The pass rush and the blitz packages that Don Brown put together for Nathan Stanley were just so effective, and Iowa was completely shut down. So they're going to have to bounce back against Penn State, and Penn State's defense is probably better than Michigan's. So that should be intriguing as well. And again, those noon games are highlighted by Oklahoma, Texas, which has been the game in the Big 12 for decades, of course, but specifically now that Texas is off the deck and playing more like Texas football and winning that game against Oklahoma last year. And then the two put on a nice Big 12 championship game last year with Oklahoma getting revenge. And South Carolina, Georgia, probably not much of a game, but anytime the SEC gets together, it's worth watching with one of the top 3 teams in the country, and Mississippi State, Tennessee at noon. All right, you guys know that I'll be locked in all week previewing week 7, looking at some of your favorite teams, looking at as many teams as possible, obviously the contenders and the big matchups in week 7. Please like, comment, share the videos, and subscribe. If you're not sold, please check out the videos. Then we hope that you'll subscribe right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. And if you own a business, you work at a business where you have some level of decision making or can talk to somebody who makes the decisions, or you have contact with somebody, a friend, a relative who owns a business that you think would be a great fit to be a sponsor here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, please let me know. Just contact me at MarkRogersTV@gmail.com. Also, you can sign up for our weekly newsletter. Our weekly newsletter comes out every Monday. I will not clutter up your inbox otherwise. You get one mailing per week. It's our weekly newsletter that comes out every Monday, the Voice of College Football newsletter. Just send your email to mine at MarkRogersTV@gmail.com. What I provide there is my take on the weekend, also a channel update, and stats, facts, and trends that you will not find anywhere else. I guarantee it. Stats, facts, and trends that you will not find in one place. Maybe you'll come across 1 or 2 items that you saw during the college football weekend, but not in one collection of stats, facts, and trends that you will find anywhere else. So again, you can get our Voice of College Football newsletter by sending your email address to mine at MarkRogersTV@gmail.com. And again, I think we're going to start playing Christmas music as part of my promo here. Christmas is coming. If you're like me, you're going to shop the last 3 days before Christmas, or probably send a check to those people that you send and gift to. But if you're not me, and hopefully you're not, you do some legitimate Christmas shopping, and you could do so at Amazon. Of course, I understand this outfit's doing pretty well for itself. Amazon. And you can help us build the channel by grabbing the Amazon link in the description section of any of the videos. Grab the Amazon link and do your regular Amazon shopping. Just use that link, and it's the same shopping experience. You don't spend an extra penny, but you help build the channel. All right. Right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. If you had any comments that you left in the comments section of the chat that you would like me to get to, just copy and paste them and post them in the comments section of any of the videos, because I'm not going to see it in the chat. So if you have a recommendation, you got a request, you got a suggestion, you got a comment or question, just copy and paste it and leave it in the comments section of any of the videos, and I will get to it. We appreciate your support, your contributions, and I am going to watch the rest of this Washington-Stanford game, and who knows, I may have more instant analysis coming up later tonight as I scan some of the games that I missed during this college football day, and we see that the Astros have taken a 3-1 lead on the Rays in the top of the 9th inning as well. Right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, thanks you so much for joining us. You have a great rest of your weekend. Good to see you, Cheryl. Thank you so much for the support. We'll see you soon. Theo, please send your email to mine at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. It's a fair swap of email addresses. Just send me your email address to MarkRogersTV at Gmail. Thanks, Leo or Theo. Thank you so much. And we'll see everybody very soon.